Did you know there are places on Earth where heaven touched the ground? And the stones still whisper the unseen. Are these places real, or just metaphors of faith? What archaeology reveals today might just transform the way you see the Bible forever. In this video, we're going to visit 10 biblical sites, discover how they once were, what remains today, and the last one will change forever how you look at Jerusalem. Get ready for a journey through sacred ruins, silent deserts, and forgotten cities, places where God spoke, acted, and left eternal marks. If you've ever wondered whether the Bible is more than words, if it is truly living history, then this video is for you. Let's explore what remains, not just in stone, but in purpose, and what that means for us today. No one forgets the day they heard God for the first time, or at least felt like heaven had touched the earth. Mount Sinai wasn't just a backdrop of rocks and silence. It was like a spiritual volcano. Thunder roaring, dark clouds, smoke rising as if the mountain itself was breathing. Imagine yourself at its base, not as a tourist, but as someone about to hear a voice that could change everything. It was there that Moses trembled not out of human fear, but reverence his soul, realizing that this place burned from within. Some say the true Sinai is in Saudi Arabia, the mysterious Jebel al-Lawz, where even today you can find marks of fire, split rocks, and an ancient altar carved at the base. The geographic debate still divides scholars, but the spiritual experience is unanimous. That mountain holds an energy that transcends GPS coordinates. On recent expeditions, witnesses spoke of a strange peace mixed with weight, as if holiness still clings to the ground. And when you step on such sacred soil, you don't just take off your shoes. You shed pride, hurry, and doubt. Climbing that mountain, even symbolically, is the challenge of our generation. God still speaks, but are we willing to ascend? The summit doesn't always come with Wi-Fi, comfort, or applause. Sometimes it's just silence, stone, and dust, but that's where the voice is heard. Maybe you need to turn off your phone for a weekend, or fast, or simply sit quietly and say, "Speak, Lord." It is curious how most revelations still happen atop some mountain, not because God is far away, but because we need to climb higher to see with new eyes. Speaking of things that fall from above, there's something strangely beautiful about watching a wall fall, especially when no hammer, army, or siege caused it. Jericho wasn't just any city, it was a fortress, intimidating and unshakable. Yet, it crumbled under the sound of trumpets and the obedience of a people who walked in silence for 7 days. Imagine that, walking, not fighting, obeying a strange command, not strategizing. It's like being told to whisper at a hurricane and watching it retreat. That's the paradox of faith. It doesn't always make sense until it makes history. Archaeologists like Kathleen Kenyon found collapsed walls in Jericho that seemed to have fallen outward, an odd phenomenon for ancient warfare. Some say it was an earthquake, others call it coincidence, but those who walk by faith don't call it anything less than divine precision. Sometimes, the walls in your life aren't waiting for brute force, they're waiting for surrender. A job you can't get, a relationship that won't heal, anxiety that won't let go. Maybe it's not about breaking through, but circling it with prayer and patience. One of the hardest truths is this: faith only works when obedience goes first. You can expect walls to fall if you race shouting too soon, or not walking at all. Just like Jericho, your miracle may depend on how quietly and consistently you move, even when the city looks untouched. Maybe it's time to stop asking, "When will this end?" and start walking, one step per day. Because some walls fall, not with effort, but with alignment. And just beyond those ruins, something even more unexpected was growing. Nazareth was the kind of place people passed through, not to. Small, dusty, tucked between hills, more a whisper than a shout. Can anything good come from Nazareth, they asked? And yet, the answer was not just something good, but the very source of all goodness. Jesus, the Word made flesh, grew up not in a palace, but in a village so unimportant that it barely made maps. It's like the CEO of the universe choosing to work from a back alley repair shop. But that's how God works, in places we overlook, through people we underestimate. Archaeologists uncovered a modest stone dwelling in Nazareth, believed by some to be the childhood home of Mary. It's not grand. There's no gold, no marble, numbered temple walls, just limestone. Simplicity, silence, yet in that space, the eternal prepared for the extraordinary. That's the paradox of transformation. It often begins in the quiet places. In your life, Nazareth may look like the season no one applauds, the job that feels small, the role that feels hidden, the work that seems forgotten. But what if that's exactly where greatness is being formed? It's not always about being seen. Sometimes, it's about being shaped. Nazareth teaches that obscurity is not a punishment, it's a preparation. So if you feel overlooked, remember, Jesus was too, until the appointed time. God often hides his greatest works in silence. And just like that humble village changed the course of eternity, maybe your quiet season is the womb of something divine. Because the next stop on the journey doesn't just talk about promise, it demands everything. Mount Moriah isn't just a location on a map, it's the intersection of obedience, surrender, and divine mystery. Picture Abraham climbing that hill, heart pounding, knife in hand, believing God's promise while preparing to lose it. That moment was more than a test, it was a prophecy. A father ready to give his son, and a shadow of the father who one day truly would. It's like standing on the edge of everything you love, being asked to trust what you cannot yet see. Moriah is that place in all of us where faith wrestles with fear. Beneath today's dome of the rock lies the ground believed to be Mount Moriah. It's more than stone and soil. Archaeologists trace the temple's foundation here, the very place where Solomon raised a sanctuary of gold and glory. But the real altar wasn't the one layered with cedar, it was the one soaked in tears. Because every sacred structure starts with surrender. Sometimes we pray for temples in our lives, but we forget they are built where we're willing to let go. What is your Moriah? The dream, the relationship, the plan you placed on the altar? Sacrifice isn't about loss, it's about trust. Moriah reminds us that God doesn't delight in taking, but in transforming. He provided a ram for Abraham. He became the lamb for us. And maybe the thing you think you'll lose is the very thing he'll resurrect in a new form. But before resurrection, there's always an altar. And as we descend Moriah, there's a new landscape waiting. One marked not by fire and stone, but by healing and miracles. Capernaum was not grand. It had no palace, no throne, no temple of gold. And yet, heaven walked its dusty roads. This was the workshop of the divine carpenter, where blind eyes opened, demons fled, and fishermen became apostles. Standing on those ancient stones today is like stepping into a place where eternity brushed against time. It's not just about what Jesus did there, it's about how he did it, with dust on his feet and compassion in his voice. Ordinary town, extraordinary presence. Archaeologists uncovered the ruins of Peter's house and the synagogue where Jesus taught. You can almost feel the echoes in the walls of teachings that pierce pride, of laughter around the fire, of healings that transform not just bodies, but destinies. Visiting Capernaum is like walking into the diary of God's human days. And if he moved there with such power, what stops him from moving in the street where you live? Maybe the sacred isn't lost. Maybe it's just waiting to be noticed again. Capernaum teaches us that miracles rarely happen in the spotlight. They happen over dinner tables, in whispered prayers, and in places others call insignificant. Just like Peter's house became a sanctuary, your home can too. Just like a synagogue in a forgotten town became a place of glory, your routine could become sacred ground. But the question remains, if Jesus showed up at your door today, would he find faith like he did in Capernaum? Because where there is faith, even the smallest town becomes the center of the universe. Here we go, continuing with topic 6, Babylon and the Tower of Babel, the pride that fell. Babylon wasn't just a city, it was a monument to human pride. Towers reaching toward the heavens, not to seek God, but to dethrone him. The ziggurat of Ed-Amenenki, believed to be the inspiration behind the Tower of Babel, still lies in ruins, a silent monument to what happens when we build without humility. It's like stacking bricks with your back turned to the sky. Eventually, the structure collapses under the weight of its own arrogance. And isn't that what pride does? Promises height, but delivers confusion. What archaeologists found were foundations too wide for logic, inscriptions boasting of glory, and stone steps that seemed to climb nowhere. They say language was confused there, but maybe it was the heart that fractured first. Every time we build our identity on applause, achievements, or ego, we're repeating Babel. It's like using scaffolding made of smoke, impressive from afar, but useless in the storm. And the storm always comes. Pride builds fast, but it has no roots. Maybe that's why God scattered the people, not to punish, but to protect. Because sometimes, the greatest act of mercy is stopping a project that would destroy us. We don't need taller towers. We need deeper foundations, ones built on grace, truth, and the quiet confidence that we are not God and we don't need to be. Because when we surrender the need to be everything, we create space for the one who is. And in that surrender, we find a language the whole world understands. Some places become metaphors. Sodom and Gomorrah were not just cities, they became mirrors of what happens when a society forgets the weight of consequence. The discoveries at Tal El Hammam are chilling, scorched earth, buildings flattened in an instant, and sulfur balls embedded in stone like frozen lightning. It's as if time stopped the moment the heavens opened. Walking those ruins is like standing in a courtroom after the verdict has been shouted. The silence is louder than fire. Think of it, sulfur so pure it couldn't have formed naturally. Almost like divine fingerprints left behind. Historians argue, scientists theorize. But the land itself seems to speak. This is what happens when mercy is ignored too long. It's not about fear, it's about awakening. A wake-up call that grace always calls first, but justice follows close behind. And just like Lot's wife, how often do we glance back at what we should have left behind, hoping the past might still welcome us? Sometimes, God says run, not because he wants to restrict, but because he wants to rescue. And it is in those moments we are faced with a choice. Do we trust the direction, or do we crave the destruction? Everyone wants to see fire fall from heaven, until they realize they're standing too close. Maybe the real question isn't, would God judge us like Sodom? But are we living like he wouldn't? Because the skies haven't changed. But have we? Beneath the dust of Megiddo lies a battlefield layered not just in history, but in prophecy. 25 civilizations rose and fell on this very soil, as if the earth itself had to memorize the sound of war. Megiddo isn't just ancient ruins. It's a stage where kings clashed, blood stained the stones, and silence waited in between. And still, it waits. Because this place, once a city, became a countdown. Armageddon, they call it, a name that doesn't just echo through scripture, but shakes it. Standing there is like walking backstage before the final act of a global drama. You see the hills where horses once charged, and you wonder, what kind of battle could still be coming? It's not just swords and chariots anymore. Now the war is deeper, between truth and deception, light and shadow, surrender and rebellion. And each of us is already on the battlefield, whether we realize it or not. Your mind is the front line. Your heart is the territory being contested. So the question isn't just will the final war happen in Megiddo? It's what battle are you fighting today? Maybe it's the one between pride and humility, or faith and fear, or silence and obedience. And just like those ancient layers, your soul is shaped by every choice stacked on the last. You don't need to see a battlefield to know you're in one. And in a world full of noise, the greatest power still comes from knowing who fights beside you. Eden is often imagined as a distant paradise, tucked away somewhere in the mists of time. But its true mystery goes beyond geography. It asks about what we've lost within ourselves. The rivers that once watered that sacred garden now run dry or hide beneath shifting sands. But the ache for Eden's peace still pulses inside every heart. Imagine a place where the world was whole, where man walked freely with the divine, without fear or shame. That longing, it's the invisible thread weaving through every story of redemption. Visiting the dry riverbeds mentioned in Genesis is like tracing the faint footprints of paradise lost. The land itself seems to whisper secrets about innocence and choice, about how a perfect garden could slip through human hands. Eden challenges us to look inward. What parts of ourselves have we left untended, like a garden overrun with weeds? And what would it take to reclaim even a small patch of that original harmony? The invitation is clear: to nurture what remains and to seek restoration not just around us, but deep within. The truth is, Eden isn't only a location on a map, it's a state of being. It's that inner sanctuary where faith, hope, and love grow unchained by fear. So when you feel lost or broken, remember, the garden is never fully gone. It waits patiently in your soul, ready for you to come home, to walk with God again in the cool of the day. And that journey back, it might just be the greatest adventure of all. Jerusalem is not just a city. It's the living heartbeat of countless stories where heaven and earth collide. Walking through its ancient streets, one can almost hear echoes of prayers, cries, and miracles that shaped history. From the mighty stones of the Temple Mount to the quiet tears by the Western Wall, every corner pulses with sacred memory. Imagine a place where God wept, died, and rose again. That's Jerusalem, the spiritual epicenter of faith, struggle, and hope. Archaeological treasures like the massive stones weighing hundreds of tons, or the ancient coins unearthed from the temple's days, are more than relics. They're tangible proof of a living story that refuses to fade. They remind us that faith isn't a distant myth, but a reality carved deep into time and space. Jerusalem challenges us to see beyond the rubble, to recognize that restoration is always possible, both for cities and for souls. It's a symbol that no matter how broken things get, God's redemptive power remains unstoppable. But Jerusalem's true significance lies beyond that. Physical, it is a mirror reflecting what God longs to restore within each person. Just as the city has been torn down and rebuilt, so too can we find renewal and hope amid our struggles. The question lingers: what walls in your heart need rebuilding? What burdens do you carry that Jerusalem's promise of resurrection can lighten? The journey through this sacred city is a call to embrace transformation, to walk toward the restoration God has in store. Every place we've journeyed through holds far more than stones and dust. It carries encounters with the eternal. These sacred sites whisper stories of faith, hope, and transformation that echo across centuries. If God spoke through deserts, mountains, and humble villages, then maybe He's speaking to you right now, inviting you to listen beyond the noise. What if the very ground beneath your feet holds a message meant just for your heart? If you truly believe the Bible is more than history, go ahead and type "God still speaks" in the comments below. Let your faith be known, and join this community of seekers. Here, the story of faith comes alive in ways you've never experienced before, weaving history, archaeology, and spirit into one powerful journey. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss a chance to deepen your understanding. Have they found Sodom and Gomorrah? The archaeological and spiritual truth behind judgment. This video perfectly connects with the story of destruction we saw earlier, and will challenge your understanding of divine justice. A must-watch for those hungry for evidence and revelation.